Hello, welcome to another IELTS essay writing video. Today we're looking at a general question that was seen in Vijayawada, India in August of 2011. If you find this video helpful, I encourage you to visit my blog at IELTS.com. The question reads, in some countries, grandparents play a significant role in bringing up children. Is this a positive or negative thing? So let's go over the question quickly together. The question is stating that in many places, grandparents play a significant, which means very central or important, role in raising children. So that is the statement, and then we are asked, is this a positive or negative thing? So don't let the question confuse you. It is simply asking you to state one way or the other whether you agree or disagree with this question. Thus, we are going to respond to this question in an argument essay format. Now, before we get to the essay itself, we need to decide what our opinion is on this essay question. And I recommend that students, for the purpose of their exam mark, choose the response that is easiest to write, because this will help to ensure that you make fewer grammatical and structural errors. So let's brainstorm a few ideas that would support a positive point of view and a few ideas that would support the negative point of view. So now, if we were to support the idea that it is positive for grandparents to bring up children, we might think that grandparents have more experience, and because they have more experience in life, they may be able to share lessons with children that would help structure their characters in a positive way. So why don't we say that they would be able to share their experiences with children? That could be one point that would support this position. Now, another point we could share may be that families that live with grandparents and children that live with their grandparents and grandparents that help to bring up the children, maybe this provides opportunities for children to service the grandparents. So this might be, if a grandfather lives with the family, perhaps the child has to help take care of the grandfather and help the grandfather with some of the maybe some of the problems that the grandfather faces that might be age related. So maybe I don't know, maybe massaging their joints, if they're stiff, or serving them meals, something like this. So I think that maybe this could also be a positive thing, because this would help to develop the child as a benevolent person, so as a person that is interested in doing good things for other people. So maybe we could just state it as living with grandparents. Living with grandparents allows children to develop their or develop themselves as benevolent individuals. Okay, so perhaps these could be our just that, at this point we're just brainstorming, but 2 points that would support the idea of grandparents playing a role in the raising of children. Now, if we were to look at the other side, what could be some negative points? So how could we refute this if we wanted to refute this this argument? Now, when I read the question, I was thinking a little bit about points that would perhaps refute this, and I was thinking that maybe the point of view or the opinions or the beliefs or the lessons that grandparents could share with children might be a little dated. So their opinions are not very modern. They are a few generations older. So their opinions might not be as applicable as, say, the opinions of the child's biological parents. So maybe we could say something to the effect that grandparents have older ideas, and that maybe this could be something that that could be used to argue that the role that grandparents play in a family might be best left to doing other things aside from raising children. Now, when it comes to a second point, I'm a little bit I'm having a bit of difficulty coming up with another negative here. I suppose that that grandparents that are involved in the raising of children, if they were to, say, live with the children as well, this this might detract from I don't know, might cause the children to detract from their studies, but I think that's a little bit far-fetched. So anyway, so if we look at the chart that we've come up with here, at least for me, it's much easier to come up with points that support the idea of grandparents playing a central role in raising children, as opposed to points refuting this. So let's agree that we're going to write an essay that supports our essay question and the statement that is made in the essay question. So the 2 points that we're going to use to argue this are to share. So grandparents can share their experiences with their grandchildren, and this would be a very helpful lesson to the grandchildren. And secondly, that grandparents who are involved in their children's lives regularly may also provide opportunities for the children to service the grandparents and maybe to develop themselves as benevolent individuals. So now we have our 2 points. Let's start the essay. Now, of course, I feel the need to point out that in the actual exam, we would actually not write a little graph like this. We would just do this in our heads mentally and try to figure out what points we're going to use to support the essay. And we'd have to do this very quickly. So this would be kind of a brainstorming session we would have to be able to accomplish in under a minute. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to do is to make a sort of general statement, perhaps regarding the role that grandparents play in families. And we might want to state that this role is different among different cultures around the world. So, for example, in the culture that I come from, in Canada, very rarely do grandchildren live with their grandparents for a number of reasons, and not all of them are good reasons, but that's the culture in Canada. And then if I compare that to the culture in China, it's very normal for people to live with their grandparents and sometimes even their great-grandparents. So let's make a general statement about these cultural changes and how they exist around the world. So perhaps we could start with something such as the roles that grandparents play in families vary from, we'll say, one culture to another. Okay. Now, did I put a page break in here? I don't think I did. Let me do that very quickly so we can keep everything organized. Okay. So, so we started with a very kind of global sentence, very general, and it's a comment about grandparents and the roles that grandparents play in families. And we're just saying that this is something that varies from one culture to another. Now we want to become a little bit more specific because we want to share our thesis in the third sentence with our reader. So we might start to pinpoint the idea that in certain cultures, grandparents are very central to the raising of children, or very central to the family as a whole. So let's say something like, in many countries, elderly members of a family may be quite central, let's say maybe quite central to the raising of children, maybe we can just stop it there. So in many countries, elderly members of a family may be quite central to the raising of children. Okay, so now as you can see in the first sentence and the second sentence, although the second sentence kind of reflects our essay question very closely, we have not yet stated what our opinion is as writers. We've only kind of said a couple general sentences about the topic. So basically we're kind of warming up the reader, and then in the third sentence we're going to deliver our opinion as our thesis. So now this second sentence says a lot, uses a lot of the keywords from the question. So in the thesis sentence where we share our opinion, in this next sentence, we're just kind of going to reflect on what we've just said here. So maybe we could, just use a phrase such as, although contested by many. This is kind of, we're just trying to be a little fancy here, but so although contested by many, which just means that even though many people may disagree or may not agree with the sentence that we just wrote, although contested by many, we'll say it is argued that this, let's see, this family arrangement, we'll say, has positive effects on younger family members. Okay, let's just reread that, make sure that it's solid. Although contested by many, it is argued that this family arrangement has positive effects on younger family members. Now, I'll just direct your attention to this phrase here, this family arrangement. So already in this paragraph, we're showing our examiner that we know how to use cohesion. Basically, what I have done here is by writing this family arrangement, I am linking this sentence to the sentence before it. So what family arrangement are we talking about? We're talking about this family arrangement that we wrote before, that in many countries, elderly members of a family may be quite central to the raising of children. So already, we're demonstrating our ability to write cohesively. Now, we have to, in our last sentence, show the two supporting points that we're going to use to prove this point of view. And as we already pointed out, as we already brainstormed in the beginning, we were going to use the fact that older people have more experience than younger people, and by sharing these experiences with younger people, they provide a useful educational service. They have a lot to teach younger people, and this is a positive thing we're saying. And the second point that we were going to use is that by being involved in the lives of younger people, they provide younger people opportunities to develop themselves as benevolent people, to develop themselves as people who are willing and eager and able to empathize with the needs of older individuals. So if you remember, as we said, if a child was to live with his or her grandfather or grandmother, they may have to carry out certain chores to help take care of these grandparents. And what we're saying is that this is a good thing. So this is something that helps to develop the child as a good person. So now the task at hand is to summarize these 2 points into a sentence. So now we're going to say something like, this will be proven. This will be proven. This is kind of a magical phrase here. This is something you can just memorize this before you go into the examination and just pull this out whenever you need it. So this will be proven by analyzing. Let's say how living with elderly role models. We'll say how living with elderly role models. Now we have 2 points. Can both. How living with elderly role models can both, we'll say, help to build a child's character, and maybe, which is here, and teach them empathy for others. This will be proven by analyzing how living with elderly role models can both help to build a child's character. I'm going to change living because that's actually not in the essay question. Let's say interacting. Interacting with elderly role models can both help to build a child's character and teach them empathy for others. Okay, so now we've set up the stage, and basically in our opening paragraph here we've started very broad. We came to our thesis, which is the whole point of the essay, and we've shared the 2 points that we're going to use to support that thesis. Now let's go back and read the paragraph once together, and you can see how the whole paragraph kind of works like an upside down triangle. We start broad and we become very narrow. The roles that grandparents play in families vary from one culture to another. In many countries, elderly members of a family may be quite central to the raising of children. Although contested by many, it is argued that this family arrangement has positive effects on younger family members. This will be proven by analyzing how interacting with elderly role models can both help to build a child's character and teach them empathy for others. Great. Now let's start our first supporting paragraph, which is dealing with, as we have shown in our outline sentence. So we said that this is going to do something to build a child's character, and by this I mean we're talking about the grandparents sharing their their previous experiences with children, which helps to develop the kids as people. So maybe we can start with something like, firstly, cohesion there. Okay, firstly, so the increased experience have can be helpful in educating young people. Okay, so firstly, the increased experience elderly members have can be helpful in educating young people. So now we have to think about an example that will support, or sorry, will show this topic sentence in action. So, you know, now I'm trying to think of something that might be a bit dramatic, something that elderly people have experienced that could help younger people understand the world around them better or develop as more positive or peaceful people. So maybe we could use the example of war, which I think, you know, many older people in many different countries have experience in, and that maybe by sharing these experiences with their grandchildren, they can you know, help to maybe promote the idea that living a peaceful life is you know, something that is positive, something that that should be appreciated, maybe. So let's try something perhaps like, for example, let's see, for example, older people who have toughed through, we'll say, times of war, maybe more able to teach their grandchildren the merits of living a peaceful life, we'll say. That's living a peaceful life. For example, older people who have toughed through times of war may be more able to teach their grandchildren the merits of living a peaceful life. Okay, so now let's just discuss this point a little bit and show how this connects to our topic sentence. So maybe we could say something like, it can be agreed that this lesson, or maybe this kind of lesson, develops a child's character. So here we're just showing the reader exactly how our example shows and you know, links to a positive result. So the grandparents teaching the grandchildren about the importance of having peace in your life, and perhaps, you know, the maybe even the negative effects of war. This this will lead to positive things in the development of a child's character. So that's our discussion sentence. Now let's go to our conclusion sentence, which is basically a sentence that we want to use just to link back to our thesis, and our thesis is basically overall grandchildren who are raised by grandparents experience many positive benefits. So let's conclude this paragraph with something like thus: the benefits in having grandparents we'll use the exact words from our essay question here. Bring up children can be seen. Okay, so now the entire paragraph that we have just written links right back to the thesis. So we've shared an example, we've shown how this example proves the point, and now we're showing how this entire paragraph proves the thesis. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of the paragraph and read it together. Firstly, the increased experience of elderly family members can be helpful in educating young people. Elderly family members can be helpful in educating young people. For example, older people who have toughed through times of war may be able to teach their grandchildren the merits of living a peaceful life. It can be agreed that this kind of lesson develops a child's character. And let's even stick in here. And for this reason is positive. Positive in nature. Thus, the benefits in having grandparents bring up children can be seen. Okay, now let's go to our second supporting paragraph. Okay, let me insert break. Okay. Now in the second supporting paragraph, we are bringing up the idea that grandparents who are very central in a child's life help the child to develop their, their abilities to empathize for others and to take care of others. So let's maybe continue our discussion with, in addition to this, young people who are given the chance to interact regularly with their grandparents learn the importance of benevolence firsthand. Okay, so in addition to this, young people who are given the chance to interact regularly with their grandparents learn the importance of benevolence firsthand. Okay, so what are we saying here? We are saying that that young people who are able, maybe they have the opportunity to live with their grandparents, or at least interact with their grandparents on a regular basis, learn how to be benevolent people, and they learn this firsthand. What does firsthand mean? Well, you've probably heard the term a second-hand car, or even maybe a second-hand suit. So this is something that has been used before, but if you do something firsthand, this is it just means more direct. So in taking care of people, there's no more direct way than to actually do it with your own two hands. So when we say firsthand, we just mean that the children are having a real opportunity to actually develop themselves as benevolent people. Now let's share an example. So perhaps, like we said when we were thinking about our, when we were doing our brainstorming, that children that live with their grandparents, they would probably have to help in maybe serving the grandparents' meals, or even helping to relieve some of their age-related problems. So, for example, like arthritis, maybe providing some kind of basic massage or something to help ease their joints. So maybe we can use these sorts of things as our example. So let's use a bit of cohesion here and say these children. Now, which children are we talking about? We're talking about the children we brought up in the first sentence. are usually required to help their grandparents deal with age-related disorders. Perhaps such as massaging their feet to reduce pain due to arthritis. These children are usually required to deal with age-related disorders. Oops, 2 spaces in here. Okay, these children are usually required to help their grandparents deal with age-related disorders, such as massaging their feet to reduce pain due to arthritis. Okay. Now, maybe, to discuss this, we could say, of course, if a child is regularly exposed to this, to these sorts of household chores, let's say. So if a child every day, if they they have to help grandma and they have to help grandpa, and this is something they do every single day, well, let's make the argument that that it's difficult to refute the fact that this will develop them as people who are able to empathize with others. So we could say something like, thus, it is no surprise that children exposed regularly to this kind of work develop their sense of empathy. So thus, it is no surprise that children exposed regularly to this kind of work develop their sense of empathy. And I think most people would agree that that's a very positive thing. Now let's conclude the paragraph by linking it once again, by linking this paragraph the first time, but the essay, the 2 paragraphs once again back to our thesis. So let's say something like this, makes it clear. Again, these kind of phrases, this makes it clear, thus, as this shows. These kind of phrases you can commit to memory and practice, and then finally they will just come out naturally for you and make your essay writing much easier. So this makes it clear, or let's just change that quickly to this makes clear the positive points in having grandparents play a part in bringing up children. This makes it clear. Let me just go back here a bit. Okay, this makes clear the positive points in having grandparents play a part in bringing up children. So can you see now how this paragraph, this idea, we've shown now there is a link between this and our thesis, that it's a good thing to have parents playing central roles in raising children. Now let's go back to the beginning of the paragraph and we'll read through it one time together. In addition to this, young people who are given the chance to interact regularly with their grandparents learn the importance of benevolence firsthand. These children are usually required to help their grandparents deal with age-related disorders, such as massaging their feet to reduce pain due to arthritis. Thus, it is no surprise that children exposed regularly to this kind of work develop their sense of empathy. This makes clear the positive points in having grandparents play a part in bringing up children. Okay. Now we are on to the last paragraph, which is, in my opinion, the very easiest paragraph to write. Because we are not stating anything new, we are simply regurgitating what we have already talked about in the essay. So as you know, the first sentence in our conclusion paragraph is a summary of the points that we have discussed already. So let's just do this quickly. After analyzing how the presence of grandparents in a child's life help in the child's education. Okay, so after analyzing how the presence of grandparents in a child's life help in the child's education, the beneficial ramifications, very fancy way of just saying the good things, the beneficial ramifications of such an arrangement can be seen, which I will say is clear. Well, no, we'll say it can be seen, and we'll do it poetically with clarity. Okay. After analyzing how the presence of grandparents in a child's life help in the child's education, we could change this maybe to overall development as a person, but we'll leave it at education. The beneficial ramifications of such an arrangement can be seen with clarity. Now let's make a quick comment, and personally I'm going to make a comment about Western society, and that perhaps maybe it would be positive for Western society to revert back to this kind of family arrangement. But you can, make any comment that you would see fit, or even a prediction. So if you wanted to say something like, although this this family arrangement gives off many benefits, the current trends in the world appear to dictate that it is falling out of favor among most countries, or something like that. You can. It doesn't have to necessarily. At this point, I mean, a prediction doesn't necessarily have to fit exactly with what you've just argued. I mean, if you maybe you've argued that this kind of family arrangement is a good thing, but in your heart you have a feeling that this arrangement won't continue for very much longer. As I mean, a lot of countries around the world now, the elderly members of families are usually sent to some kind of home to be taken care of by nurses. So maybe that's what you think will happen to most countries around the world, and you could use that as part of a prediction sentence. Anyways, I'm going to do a recommendation, or maybe kind of like a wish for the future. So I'm going to write, it is hoped someday Western societies revert back to let's call it communal family living. Okay, and that's how I will conclude this essay. It is hoped someday Western societies revert back to communal family living. Nice little closing. Now let's go back and read the entire essay from the beginning. And I'll ask you to try to make a point of all of the areas of cohesion that we've included. So we'll point them out as we go along as well. The roles that grandparents play in families vary from one culture to another. In many countries, elderly members of a family may be quite central to the raising of children. Although contested by many, so of course here's our first bit of cohesion. We have linked this back to the ideas before. What is being contested? This idea is being contested, or is contested by other people. It is argued that this family arrangement has positive effects on younger family members. Again, this family arrangement, this is also an example of cohesion. We're linking to an idea that we presented before. This will be proven by analyzing how interacting with elderly role models can both help to build a child's character and teach them empathy for others. Now, here we start with firstly, the increased experience elderly family members have can be helpful in educating young people. Again, this is another area of cohesion. This is cohesion at the essay level. We are linking back to our outline sentence, which was found in the introduction paragraph. For example, older people who have toughed through times of war may be more able to teach their grandchildren the merits of living a peaceful life. It can be agreed that this kind of lesson, more cohesion here, this kind of lesson, what are we talking about? We're talking about the lesson that we brought up in our example. Develops a child's character, and for this reason, intersentence cohesion, this reason, so develops a child's character, that is the reason, this reason, is positive in nature. Thus, the benefits in having grandparents bring up children can be seen. Thus, another linking phrase, we're talking about the discussion and the example that we brought up before. The benefits in having grandparents bring up children can be seen. This entire sentence is cohesion at the essay level. This links us back to our thesis. Let's continue. In addition to this, young people who are given the chance to interact regularly with their grandparents learn the importance of benevolence firsthand. Again, cohesion at the essay level. This is linking back to our outline sentence in the introduction paragraph. These children are usually required to help their grandparents deal with age-related disorders, such as massaging their feet to reduce pain due to arthritis. These children, more cohesion at the sentence level. We are linking back to the sentence that came before. Thus, it is no surprise that children exposed regularly to this kind of work develop their sense of empathy. This kind of work, what are we talking about? We're talking about the work we brought up in the example, more cohesion at the sentence level, thus also at the sentence level. This makes clear the positive points in having grandparents play a part in bringing up children. This makes clear cohesion at the sentence level. We are linking at the paragraph level. We're linking to the ideas that came before this sentence in the paragraph. And the rest of the sentence, having grandparents play a part, linking at the essay level. Here we're linking back to our thesis. After analyzing how the presence of grandparents in a child's life help in the child's education, so here we've said after, and this is just linking us back to our two supporting paragraphs, the beneficial ramifications of such an arrangement. What arrangement are we talking about? We're talking about the arrangement of having grandparents in a child's life. This is at the sentence level. Can be seen with clarity. It is hoped someday Western societies revert back to communal family living. Okay, let's do a quick word count from the top. I think we should be in the right area here. Tools, word count. 271, perfect. This essay is neither too long nor is it too short. So our essay is just the right length. I'm sure our examiner will appreciate that it's not over 300 words. Okay, so that concludes our writing lesson for today. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for listening.